Prime Minister says no cuts in health and education. Symposium hears 80% still cannot access safe surgery. And Pundari maps out 100-day plan for climate authority.
This is National EMTV News with Miriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Monday's news. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has put an end to claims of budget cuts on the education and health sectors. The Prime Minister made this announcement while speaking at the opening of the 53rd Medical Symposium. He said the government's top priority is improving access to universal health care.
The government's plan for the health sector is to improve from the outcomes of the first Aleta Accord under the second Aleta Accord. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, opening the 53rd Medical Symposium, highlighted the important role of healthcare providers to work together with the government to improve service delivery.
We have made some gains over the past 5 years. We have extended our basic healthcare services to millions of people right throughout the country. But we must do more. More needs to be done. Individually and together, for all the support that you continue to give to our country, especially in the delivery of healthcare to our remotest communities around this nation. Improving access to universal health care is the top priority of our government.
Outlining some of the government's priorities, Mr. O'Neill said they will continue the rehabilitation of provincial hospitals and focus more on health epidemics and cancers affecting women.
We've increased our focus on TB, HIV/AIDS, and of course, many areas in the health sector that affects particularly our women and children right throughout the country. In terms of this government, I can assure you that we will continue to rebuild the health infrastructure across the country. We are increasing training for all our health workers, and in particular for those who are working in the rural and remote areas. One of our government's strong commitments is to build a medical university here in the nation's capital.
This year's symposium is focused on access to safe surgery and anesthetic care, with hopes to formulate a policy that can be adapted by all hospitals in urban and rural settings.
We would like to use these plans as a conduit to support our other key clinical essential services, providers of emergency medicine, radiology, pathology, pharmaceutical services be supported to ensure the full potential of accessibility of safe and affordable surgery and anesthesia services can be achieved when needed. We would like to utilize these plans to formulate respective policies, and when endorsed by the Medical Society of Papua New Guinea, will be presented to the National Department of Health to be considered for 2021-2030 National Health Plan for budget prioritizations and implementation.
The annual medical symposium is an occasion for professionals and the medical fraternity to present research papers to improve the country's health and medical sector by formulating policies and treatment for diseases. Merlin Diakotam, National EMTV News.
While 700 per 100,000 of hospital admissions are related to surgery, 80% of the country's population lack access to a safe surgery experience. This was presented by Dr. Noah Tapawa, heart specialist of the Port Moresby General Hospital at the Medical Symposium.
This morning's medical symposium session was an overview of surgery and anesthetic care burdens on the country, in the Pacific and on a global scale. On a global scale, more than 5 million people have access to safe surgery and affordability, while in Papua New Guinea, only 20% of the population has this access. It was stressed that surgeries are just as important as treating epidemics. 60% of deaths are trauma-related cases, including accidents, obstetrics and gyno, outnumbering pneumonia, malaria and HIV put together.
So that's a burden. on what you and I are doing. Unfortunately, the present epidemiological framework focuses on this. This is cause. What surgery and anesthesia are doing is treatment. And it's quite a difficult task for us to measure. And that is why we've come up with the indicators. Our health budget is focused on primary health care.
The only access to health facilities that provide better treatment are Port Moresby and Ley, who are found to have the most number of public and private health care. This is a burden for many who live in rural areas and cannot afford treatment.
In Mount Hagen, trying to access service in Port Moresby General Hospital, it takes a long time and the delay goes on. When we look at the SAO, Papua New Guinea, you can see it's 2.3, and this includes all the surgeons, obstetric, gynecology, and OMF, ENT, high, and general surgery. We are way down. The requirement, the target is 20 to 40 per thousand.
Dr. Tapawa says the job now is to find a solution to access surgery and anesthetic care and how to finance it. Merlin Daukatam, National EMTV News.
A Malaysian woman has been deported after having been found to have links to a drug ring responsible for distributing the drug ice. The PNG Immigration and Citizenship Service Authority, who is responsible for managing Papua New Guinea's borders in relation to the movement of people in and out of the country, detained Anita Ting Mi Seong and sent her on a flight out of the country at around 2 p.m. today. The ICSA worked with domestic and international authorities to carry out a comprehensive investigation before she was repatriated. Government officials, including Planning Minister Richard Maru and a Japanese delegation, visited the multi-million kina Port Moresby sewage upgrade project today. The 385 million kina sewage project is a major investment by the government of Japan under a bilateral agreement with Papua New Guinea. The project is currently in its second stage of construction.
The 385 million kina sewage project located at Joyce Bay in the Moresby South Electorate is funded through a bilateral agreement with Japan to co-finance the project back in 2010. The PNG government is funding 156 million kina, while the Japan government, under a JICA loan, is contributing 229 million kina. The project was signed in 2010 but was delayed due to re-scooping of the project coverage and changes in the catchment area to accommodate the increase in population and to also accommodate APEC 2018. Minister for Planning and Monitoring Richard Maru and Kumu Consolidate Holding CEO Thomas Abe, along with a Japanese delegation led by the Ambassador Satoshi Nakajima, visited the multi-million kina Port Moresby sewage upgrading project today. Meanwhile, concerns have been raised about the government not paying the contractor its share of the deal. Minister Maru says he is taking the issue seriously and said the government is committed to meet the outstanding funds and some funds will be released this week. Minister Maru thanked the government and the people of Japan and said he will allow the Prime Minister of Japan to formally open the project when he is here for APEC 2018. Adelaide Xerox Kari, National EMTV News.
Environment, Conservation and Climate Change Minister John Pundari has laid out a 100-day plan for the Climate Change and Development Authority. Among immediate priorities is the finalization of key policies to enable the drawdown of funds from international donors. Speaking to CCDA staff recently, Minister Pundari encouraged the staff to remain committed to advancing the cause for climate change awareness.
Staff of Climate Change and Development Authority recently met with Minister John Pundari following his re-election and reappointment as Minister for Environment, Conservation and Climate Change. When addressing those present, Minister Pundari announced a 100-day plan for CCDA.
In the next 100 days, maybe I would want to be informed clearly as to how far we are going as an agency of the state, as an authority, in getting ourselves accredited so that we can be able to deal direct with some of these institutions so that we do not continue to burn so-called administration costs in between.
Among the targets, capacity building within the authority, with vacant positions to be filled by the end of this month. According to CCDA Acting Managing Director Royal Yamuna, the immediate action plan is aimed at ensuring that the functions of the authority are improved.
The Minister has given his directions that we now have to work in terms of improving community livelihoods, in terms of making sure that the different priority areas actually materialize at the community level. And that's one particular aspect that I'm glad our development partners are here so that they can take note and we can push forward so that at least at the end of the day, our people who are suffering from the adverse effects of climate change can at least have some form of support to at least help them adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change.
During these initial 100 days, the National Adaptation Plan is also expected to be finalized, which will then be submitted to the Green Climate Fund to access funding worth $3 million, around 9 million kina.
So in the next 100 days, I would want to know what are the problems, what are the constraints, the impediments, if there is any, and the way forward as to what needs to be done now and tomorrow and next week, and when we will actually realize these funds.
To mark the 75th anniversary of Kokoda, MTech, a subsidiary of EMTV, together with the Tourism Promotion Authority and Paradise Cinemas, today launched a documentary on Kokoda. The documentary, titled Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels, Beyond the Legend, looks into the history of the Kokoda trek from a local perspective. It's the first time a PNG documentary will be screening in the cinema and starts on the 8th of this month.
The documentary Fuzzy Wuzzy Beyond the Legend was produced by MTech and initiative by PNG Tourism Promotion Authority to mark the 75th anniversary of the Kokoda trek. Director of Kokoda documentary Marco Venditti explained why it was so important to reenact the history of PNG of World War II and to tell the story from a Papua New Guinean's perspective.
The story of the Kokoda track has been told in so many different versions with so many different flavors and salsas, but essentially most of the time it's been told by the Australians, the Americans or the Japanese. Very few times the story has been told from a Papua New Guinean perspective. So our mission was to go up there and try to understand what really happened on the track.
Initiated by PNG Tourism Promotion Authority, the 40-minute documentary, soon to premiere, will be one of the first of a series of mechanisms devoted to the conflicts fought in PNG during the Second World War.
For the first time in Papua New Guinea to have a Papua New Guinea-made documentary that's actually screening in cinemas here. So it's not just for the VIP guests during the opening on Thursday, but it's actually be available for the public, for everyone to come and see here at Paradise Cinemas in Vision City. So that's a big achievement for both us at MTV and MTech, but also for documentaries in Papua New Guinea, because it's never been done before. So we're very excited about that, and we're excited about that partnership.
Supported by Capital Insurance, the documentary is one of the first locally produced documentary that gives an understanding into the 4 allied countries that were involved in World War II.
From a documentary point of view, it was a bit of a challenge to get the story right, to get the story straight, and also how to convey it, how to put it in an exciting way. And I think that's what we tried to do.
Head of the Paradise Cinemas, Pru Go, says some of the proceeds from ticket sales will go to help support PNG Tourism Promotion Authority.
What made us agree to have that screened here at Paradise Cinemas is that there is a part on the documentary when the narrator says that during the time of the Kokoda trek, the Papua New Guineans were not just helpers during the time. They were warriors, they were soldiers, and they played a very important role.
The said documentary will have limited screening at Paradise Cinemas Vision City from September 8th to 13th, and tickets to be sold at 10 kina per person. Godwin Eki, National, MTV News.
Here with National MTV News. In the news ahead, Medang MP Brian Kramer on illegal evictions. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National MTV News. The member for Medang, Brian Kramer, will be looking into evictions being carried out in Medang town to see if they are done following the right process. Mr. Kramer says he is aware of NHC issuing eviction notices to tenants, while a number of evictions have been carried out at the directive of the court. He has since requested for more information as well as the process and how they have arrived at these evictions. This is to try and understand if those evictions were lawful and understand the motivation behind them. Martha Lewis with this report.
National Housing Corporation operates through the National Department on Housing. It has a minister and an administrative structure. The Medang MP says he will have to confirm if any directives carried out by the corporation complied with the legal process.
For my issue is to confirm what any directives carried out by the Commission was lawful and complied with the lawful process. If they did, then there's no real remedy or position I can take against it.
But Mr. Kramer says he does not support evictions. He believes there is a lot of corruption involved in acquiring public service homes.
I don't support evictions. I know there's a lot of corruption now carrying out through individuals acquiring homes, public service homes, and then commercializing and then later on selling it under the pretense of them home ownership scheme. A lot of public servants have lived in those houses with their family, and then I'm seeing private interest people from outside the public service now using positions to acquire homes.
The Medang MP will be talking to Urbanization and Housing Minister John Cowper to get his position in relation to those evictions. Mr. Kramer says if those evictions were not done following legal process, he will use his position as the member for Medang to take legal proceedings to stop those evictions.
If they didn't follow the lawful process, then I expect to come down and use my position as the member of Medang, and if I have to take legal proceedings to stop them, I will stop them. But at this stage, until I've been fully briefed on those evictions and the process complied with, I can't take a position.
The Medang MP's response was in relation to the National Housing Corporation evicting long-time tenants living in public service homes. A number of families were evicted by the National Housing Corporation, who said they were acting on a national court order. These evictions have been carried out despite the Urbanization and Housing Minister's directive to stop all evictions and sale of state properties around the country. Mata Luis, National MTV News, Medang.
Still on the evictions in Medang, Medang Governor Peter Yama says the government's decision is that there will be no evictions carried out by the National Housing Corporation. Mr. Yama says the Urbanization and Housing Minister has already put a stop on all evictions, and that is now the position of the provincial government in relation to these evictions. The Medang Governor says he was not aware of recent evictions carried out in Medang.
No eviction. That was the government's decision. So if there's an eviction, I have no idea at all. I don't know where is the management getting the directive from. And if so-called people going out there and claiming that they have a title, those titles can be challenged in court, or their challenge can be rectified by an officer of the National Housing Corporation through from the office in Port Moresby to find out who gave him the authority to come and buy the house here or take over the house. It could be a fake title. It could be a title from a third party. It could be not a true title. And we need to check this properly only by checking with Port Moresby through from the National Housing Corporation in Moresby to the Minister's office. But as it stands now, there is no eviction. And that's the position of the government, and I know that. Unless they have rescinded the decision and they have come up with a new decision.
A businessman in Port Moresby is concerned with how the Lands Department is issuing land titles. Global Customs and Forwarding Limited Managing Director Richard Peke says he was locked out of a property after he followed proper procedures of acquiring the land title. He is calling on the Lands Department to come clean following 2 court dismissals in the National and Supreme Court.
The Gulf businessman established the company in 2006 in Port Moresby and has moved places between 2008 and 2015. Following the magnitude and growth of the business, Mr. Packer pursued a land in Geru's State Street area. According to Mr. Packer, a renowned business giant in the country signed an agreement with him for a $4 million deal. However, the title was fake.
Since I already paid him $400,000 and he gave me the fake title, and so that can cover the agreement we signed. But I will go through the system now, go through the procedures, requirement for the Lands Department to get a title for this land.
2 court cases between Mr. Packer and the TST group of companies has been dismissed by the courts. According to Mr. Packer, he was told by an officer from the Lands Department that TST has got hold of the original title.
The title was taken out from the file, lands file, by Sobi and gave it to Salian Mokis, who is calling herself as a consultant, real estate consultant for TST development.
Last month, staff of Global Customs were evicted from the property. Mr. Packer was taken in for questioning by police. However, there were no legal grounds to remove and stop the company from operating. The company has gained access to the property but will be back in the court with TST group of companies come September 13th.
They cut a chain, put a chain there. I went and, with all my documents, I went and lodged a complaint with Geru Police Station.
Mr. Packer believes there is inconsistency in the Lands Department. He says he is one out of the many Papua New Guineans struggling to help grow and support the economy, but efforts are being restrained by those in power.
They are using that title to evict us on those 2 Saturdays, and now they are giving us a summons to repossess this land, which we are going to defend it.
Jack Lopava, Junior National, EMTV News.
Students at the Pogera Secondary School in Enga Province can now undertake science studies with much comfort after Barrick New Guinea Limited delivered a revamped science lab to the school last month. Barrick undertook maintenance and renovation of the building through its community project section tax credit scheme at a cost of 170,000 kina.
20-year-old science laboratory was fully renovated with standard-specific science laboratory equipment ordered from Australia and fitted. The funding comes under part of Pogera Joint Venture's 1.1 million kina contribution towards supporting the school's infrastructure enhancement program after it was elevated from high school to secondary school status last year. Barrick New Guinea Limited Tax Credit Scheme Superintendent Derek Kundi officially handed over the keys to the building to Deputy Principal of Pogera Secondary School, Mr. Timothy Mendai, on Friday the 25th of August at Payam.
It's an education department requirement for a proper, up-to-date, upgraded science tech school in order for them to be regarded as secondary school.
Mr. Mendai said having a proper science laboratory for the grade 11 students was a real need for the school and thanked Pogera Joint Venture for the support.
On behalf of the school, we thank Barrick, PKV for its assistance. This assistance, the renovation of the science block is one of the important things that we need.
The handover was witnessed by grade 11 accounting teacher Mr. Benjamin Muscle and Pogera Joint Venture Tax Credit Scheme Project Superintendent Bruno Sapatale. Mr. Sapatale appealed to the school administration to stress to students to value such assets and use them to their advantage. Helen Sea, National EMTV News.
Mendi Nursing College is mourning the death of a long-serving staff and advocate for rural health. Deputy Principal, the late Conrad Tawila, died last Friday while being rushed to the hospital after collapsing. The college held a funeral service to remember him.
The casket of the late Conrad Tawila was escorted by Principal Sister Lucy Lenga from his residence into the campus for the funeral service. Sister Lenga was joined by the wife of late Tawila and family members. Students line up to salute the late Tawila, who is known by many as an advocate and enforcer for rural health services. All sister nursing institutions around the country, including representatives from the health department and nursing fraternity, were present for the funeral service. Many described the late Tawila as a responsible, hard-working and honest man.
Late Conrad. So how do we replace this kind of people? How do we replace this kind of human resource of Papua New Guinea? Southern Islands, many school of nursing.
A representative from the health department presented the national flag symbolizing the handover of the casket to the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority. Over the weekend, the late Tawila was given a last farewell at the St. Michael Catholic Church in Mendi. Believers from other denominations also joined to celebrate the life of a man who has touched many lives, not only as a health worker but friend to the community.
We have a master thanking you, plan. You've come a long way just to show your sympathy with us, your diagnosis. Deputy Principal and late Mr. Conrad Tawila.
The late Tawila is survived by his wife, 3 children and grandchildren. His body will be laid to rest in his own village, Pureni, in the Koroba area of Hela province. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
Morobe Provincial Education Board Chairman Andrew Gena has condemned school fights in Leh. Mr. Gena said school fights should now be treated as a criminal offence. The PEB chairman said all efforts and approach taken by the authorities and the public to address the concerns are exhausted. Julie Badwi-Owa reports.
The fights have continued over the years, leaving many students injured and the deaths of several. The ongoing fight between the secondary schools in Leh, especially Bugendi and Leh Secondary School, is not accepted. Gena said much has been said and addressed by the Education Department, police, schools and the public, but nothing has changed. Chief Metropolitan Superintendent for Leh, Anthony Wagambi Jr., also condemned school fights in the city. Wagambi says mass arrest will be given to all students who start the fights. The matter will be dealt with in court, where the students will be penalized.
School fighting is really unnecessary, uncalled for. And police, we have a lot of work to do. We can't spend a lot of time going out chasing students here and there. So we went back to Bugandi. I warned the students that if they do it again, we will not hesitate to have a mass arrest, have them all arrested and charged and face the court.
The Provincial Minister for Education says the arrest of students instigating school fights could be a better solution to end school fights in the province. The Education Department, schools, police and the member for Leh are working closely to end this concern. Julie Badwi-Owa, National EMTV News, Leh.
Oil Search Limited has responded to recent media statements and various newspaper articles clarifying the basis on which oil and condensate is produced in PNG and how it is sold, and confirmed its ongoing efforts to help Puma Energy in addressing its short-term foreign currency issues. In a statement released late this afternoon, Oil Search clarified that like other PNG LNG project participants, it is required by the lenders to the project to sell oil to customers only in US dollars. However, it has been working constructively with the PNG government, the Treasurer, Trafigura and Puma to identify commercial solutions that to address the present shortage of foreign currency. Oil Search is one of the biggest suppliers of foreign currency in PNG and is one of the country's largest employers. And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed 10 points lower at $0.3125 US in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.306 US, $0.3791 Australian dollars, $0.2531 euro and 33.15 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, cocoa and copper closed higher, while coffee closed the day lower. Copper closed higher, while palm oil and crude oil closed the day lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 39 points higher, the ASX closed 22 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed 22 points lower as well. Stories making headlines overseas when we come back. World leaders express concern on North Korea's latest nuclear test and another hurricane threatening the United States. We'll have the details after these messages. Welcome back to EMTV News. In regional news, PAC News has reported that the European Union will have further talks with leaders during this week's Pacific Island Forum Summit in Apia about what they want in the replacement of the Cotonou Agreement. The agreement outlines the EU's commitments in terms of aid, trade and development to countries in Africa, the Caribbean and Pacific. There are 14 Pacific members of the ACP, and the EU has already indicated it wants a more region-specific approach. The EU's Pacific Ambassador, Andrew Jacobs, said it had already been made clear that the Pacific wants a diversified approach that reflects the region's challenges. Further discussions will be held with Pacific leaders on their priorities in the new agreement in 2020. The international community is on watching developments closely, and questions have also been raised about just what the options to North Korea's latest threat.
Hours after showing off what was said to be a hydrogen bomb capable of fitting on an intercontinental missile, seismographs start dancing from this remote site, an underground North Korean nuclear test shaking the earth. The North claimed its sixth nuclear test was, quote, a perfect success, but this was its first, much more powerful hydrogen bomb test. Cheers greeted the announcement in Pyongyang, South Korea believing that the test suggests a bomb 4 to 5 times more powerful than the one that hit Nagasaki. Kim Jong-un's provocative move met with a stern response from President Trump, calling North Korea hostile and dangerous.
Mr. President, will you attack North Korea?
A month ago, the president threatened North Korea with military action.
They will be met with fire and fury.
But just a week and a half ago, saying that statement wasn't strong enough, he suggested Kim was starting to respect the U.S. A different message just hours ago. Defense Secretary James Mattis, emerging from the meeting with the president, was blunt.
Any threat to the United States or its territories, including Guam, or our allies, will be met with a massive military response, a response both effective and overwhelming.
But the defense secretary also messaged North Korea that the U.S. is not seeking hostilities.
We are not looking to the total annihilation of a country, namely North Korea. But as I said, we have many options to do so.
In his first Twitter response this morning, the president also went after South Korea, warning the U.S. ally that, quote, their talk of appeasement with North Korea will not work. They only understand one thing. Mr. Trump did not say exactly what that thing is.
Australia's Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said the risk of war on the Korean Peninsula is greater than it has been for over 60 years after Pyongyang conducted the powerful nuclear test. Speaking to reporters in Canberra, Turnbull condemned the test and asked China to take the responsibility to respond with strong action.
The vital priority now is to ensure that the North Korean regime comes to its senses. Australia, together with the global community, utterly condemns the latest reckless action by this dangerous regime. The fact remains that China has the ability, the economic ability, to bring North Korea to its senses, and the responsibility, therefore, on China is the greatest. And the time has come for all nations, including China, to take action to bring this regime to its senses. Conflict on the Korean Peninsula would be a disaster for the region and for the world. The time has come for China to take the responsibility to respond to this affront with strong action.
A week after Hurricane Harvey devastated large areas of the U.S. Gulf Coast, there's another major storm brewing in the area. Hurricane Emma is currently a Category 3 and its track is being described as uncertain. Meanwhile, some of the areas hardest hit by Hurricane Harvey are still picking up the pieces.
life-threatening emergency in West Houston tonight. Hundreds in flooded homes now under new mandatory evacuation orders. The controlled release of 2 major reservoirs expected to raise water levels even higher.
If you got water in your home, I'm requiring you to evacuate.
Jessica Castro Paredes fled her home on Monday. This is it before. Tonight, it's flooded.
We just don't know when it's going to end and how it's going to end.
Officials now cutting power to thousands to reduce the danger from electrocution. Cars submerged, their roofs damaged by boat propellers. Residents here being told the water won't recede for weeks.
What's your house like now? Probably had 7 foot of water, total devastation.
And tonight, that chemical plant just outside Houston in danger of more explosions. The cooling system broken, nothing preventing other reactors from overheating. Throughout this disaster, acts of kindness on display. Academy Sporting Goods opening its doors to more than 1,000 rescuers. What are you building? President Trump and First Lady Melania back in Texas for the second time this week, this time connecting with Houston families displaced in the disaster.
As tough as this was, it's been a wonderful thing. I think even for the country to watch and for the world to watch. It's been beautiful.
And today, a national day of prayer. The people of Texas healing with hope.
ISIS was secretly directing would-be extremists in England to murder people at both London Bridge and Westminster nearly a year before each attack. Recruiters point undercover reporters to terror manuals which showed how best to drive a car at crowds and take victims with knives.
Indiscriminate murder on the streets of London. Exactly the kind of attacks so-called Islamic State had been calling for. Our investigation reveals the group were not only inspiring such plots, but issuing directions to target both Westminster and London Bridge. Last summer, our undercover reporter made contact with IS recruiters active online. The authorities were fully aware of our communication. After inviting us to talk on a secret messaging site, IS agents pinpointed Westminster, promising if you succeed with an attack there, it would be huge and damaging.
He said that this was a very good target because it was crowded with disbelievers and civilians. He told me to just kill ordinary people and that it wouldn't require a very complicated plan.
With hindsight, the instructions look like a blueprint for the Westminster attack 8 months later. Khalid Massoud used a car to mow down pedestrians and then stabbed a policeman to death. In July 2016, we were also in conversation with another IS handler who had another target. London Bridge, he wrote. Use truck, axe, anything. We were directed to terrorist guides on the so-called dark web.
One of them showed how to use a vehicle to kill people. The other showed how to use knives and homemade bombs for maximum impact. There was a description of how to create a fake suicide vest and how it can be used to stop the police from attacking you if you are standing next to civilians.
The instructions bear all the hallmarks of the carnage nearly a year later at London Bridge.
Yeah, with National EMTV News, Trukai Sports is up next. We'll have some snooker and cricket updates. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with snooker. The 2017 BSP Men's National Snooker titles queue off tomorrow with player registration and briefing. The major titles will commence on the 12th of this month, following the minor titles and grand final at the Q Club in Port Moresby.
The minor titles round robin of 40 with the best of 3 frames will commence at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow and continues on to Thursday. Double session on Friday will see groups A to F starting off at 5:30 p.m. with session 2 consisting of group G and H queuing off at 12 p.m. midnight. The final session concludes on Saturday at 12 p.m. which will then see the top 16 players in the best of 3 frames challenge for a spot in the quarterfinals. The minor titles will end with the semi-finals hosted at the Laguna Hotel and the grand final playoffs on Sunday at the Q Club. Elsewhere, the major titles cues off on the 12th of this month with the round robin of 40 players with the best of 5 frames. The competition continues on the following weekend with the semi-final rounding up the last 4 players, best of 7 frames and the final 2 in the grand final at the Q Club. The major titles played will see 1 frame in the knockout and the best of 3 frames in the semis and final at the Laguna Hotel. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports.
To cricket, and despite a number of losses in the Queensland tour, the PNG Barramundis are optimistic about their meet with Scotland early next month for the round 6 of the Intercontinental Cup and World Cricket League Championship. Currently taking on more Queensland cricket teams, the Barras will return on the 25th of this month to await Scotland's arrival on the 28th.
These are important matches. The Barras are going to face Scotland. This is I-Cup matches and World Cricket League matches. I-Cup is the 4-day version of the next level after Test cricket. So Scotland is a strong side. They recently beat Sri Lanka, so the boys will be up against some quality opposition. And the series of matches they are playing now in Australia is giving them a good lead up into the match against Scotland.
Trukai Sports continues after these messages, so don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To boxing, WBO welterweight champion Jeff Horn is eyeing a title defense against American Jesse Vargas after Manny Pacquiao's decision to postpone the planned rematch. Vargas, an American contender and former world title holder, could possibly take Pacquiao's place for a fight later this year against Horn.
I'm kind of annoyed that it's taken this long to make a decision, but look, that's boxing. I'm figuring out that now, that's what happens at the top of the game, and guys mess around with you a lot. Fight that would definitely take. He's a tough competitor and he's been world champion. He's held my belt just before Pacquiao, so he would definitely be a tough fight and a worthy opponent.
To netball, the Silver Ferns believe a new wave of talent has arrived for New Zealand netball. The coach says a gamble on selection has paid off following a shock victory over Australia last night.
Arriving back in Auckland today, star shooter Bailey Mez looked as relaxed as ever. But last night, it was a different story. Mez playing out of position and thriving.
Oh, what a take, Bailey Mez. Where did she come from?
Definitely more comfortable back at goal shoot. But that's probably just because I haven't been there very much.
Make that hardly ever. Since making her Ferns debut in 2012, Mez has only played 4 quarters at goal attack. But the risky decision to push Tapaya Selby Rickett back to goal shoot proved a masterstroke.
We're both quite mobile and I guess have similar styles, so it's probably less of a change up when we do switch.
The duo might find themselves in this position more often.
We're still keeping the long term in mind, and felt that through training this week it was a really strong option, and with Tapaya in the back as a target, they offer something different.
So too does the 1.92 defender Kelly Jury.
It's great to have someone who can match Bassett in height. We haven't had that we've never had that.
I think she's a star in the making. She's definitely putting out some awesome performances.
In her first start against Australia, Jury shut down the Diamond Star shooter and captain Caitlin Bassett. But she'll have her work cut out to retain the goalkeep bib.
I think that we've got some awesome depth in that defensive end, so I think we've definitely got a lot of good combos to choose from.
It's just one selection dilemma facing Southby ahead of the 3-match series against England starting on Thursday.
Trukai Sports ends there. The weather details for the next 24 hours when we come back.
Trukai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
I'll look at the weather for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Rain and showers expected in Kerma and Alota. Fine becoming cloudy for Port Moresby and Daru. Thundery rain in Popondetta. To To the Momase region, rain and showers expected in Madang, Wewak and Vanimo, thundery showers in Wau, thundery rain in Lae. To the New Guinea Islands region, rain and showers for Lorengau and Kavieng, thundery showers in Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, you can expect rain as well as morning fog over the next 24 hours.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield, with doing with Dulux.
And that's the way it is to begin another working week. From the EMTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.